Hey everyone, today we're checking out a Warhammer game called Necromunda Hired Gun. So let's check this game out. As with most Warhammer games, we get a very nice cinematic that brings us into the world and explains some of the story and how hive cities work, as well as what gangs control them. Here we're introduced to the main story. Members of the Merchant Guild are called Guilders, and their job is to keep the upper hive from getting into the business of the lower hive, so they generally like to keep order down below. Unfortunately, a Guilder has been assassinated, and it's our job to track down the person who assassinated the Guilder to restore order to the lower hive. In the very start of the game, you're given a sizable list of pre-made characters. Personally, I don't have any issue with not being able to make a customized character because I feel like it's not too useful or needed in the story at all. After we've chosen our character and have gotten into the first mission, we're introduced to all the different ways that you can move around the world. This is a high-paced game, and the movement options reflect that. You can wall ride, slide, double jump, and a lot more, so there's a lot of different options for how you can move around the map. This game also has a mechanic where doing damage can actually heal you, so the game incentivizes you to keep up the pace and get really in there to actually survive the battles. I really like this system because it actually pushes you to continue fighting and to keep the game intense, which is very fun. You can also melee enemies in stealth or out of stealth, and this is a limited use that charges over time. You could play this game entirely in stealth, or at least attempt to, but personally I don't think it works too well. There are particular encounters and boss fights where enemies just know where you are and your job is not to stealth but just to kill them, so stealth is an option, but generally it's not going to work throughout the whole game. But being stealthy slows down the game and lets you actually appreciate the map. The maps are very pretty and very detailed. A lot of the maps have a lot of verticality and a lot of different options for how you can traverse the map or fight the enemies on it. There's even achievements associated with using different movement options or not using entire movement options together to get across and actually progress in a map, which is kind of funny because the developers obviously thought about all the different ways you can move around. You can find chests around the map that make a noise so that you can find them, and they contain different sorts of upgrades or weapons and things like that that you might want to look out for. You're incentivized to search around the map, which actually makes you look at the map more and sort of actually appreciate the work that has been put in. A lot of the map design in this game actually reminds me of Darktide with the very detailed yet far away aesthetic. The only issues I've ever had with these maps while playing was that there are some missions where you have to gather batteries and find them around the map to continue throughout the story, like opening doors or things like that. You should probably take my thoughts on this with a grain of salt. I'm a pretty stupid person, so the fact that I have to run around for 10 minutes looking for these batteries and get all frustrated is probably because I'm not a very smart person, so you will probably have a completely different experience. I just really want to shoot bad guys, but I do appreciate the change in pace, and it actually makes you have to think, so even though I'm bad at thinking, at least it's something to do. Some maps even have puzzles that you have to complete to progress the story, which I think is pretty interesting, even if these puzzles are easy to understand and to follow, which is probably for the best. I do like the change in pace and making you have to stop and think after going on a bullet hell rampage. At the end of each mission, you're able to take what you can fit on your person, and everything else must be left behind where it is automatically sold. I do like this system because generally you can just put in whatever weapon is best in slot to a particular part in your inventory, and you can always modify them later. It really prevents clutter and inventory management issues when everything is just automatically sold that you don't really need, so you pretty much have the best in slot items all the time, and if you don't need something, it gets sold for you. After we've brought what we can, we go to the hub area where we can do all kinds of things. You can talk to this doctor who will give you different options on things you can upgrade, like passives and active abilities. There's a lot of options here and it's almost overwhelming, but it is actually really fun to try out all the different abilities, and there is a lot of them. And over here you can customize your weapons pretty deeply. There's probably around 6 or more options on customization per weapon, including things like the stock, the muzzle, magazine, the skin, things like that. So there's a lot of different options that you can do to customize your weapons. The weapon skins do not cost actual money, they are in-game currency, so it incentivizes you to actually try to earn money and to replay missions to get the nice drip for your weapons. There's a pretty large and diverse amount of weapons in this game, from snipers to shotguns, SMGs, las guns, bolt guns, plasma guns, and even more. So there's a lot of options, and it's part of the game having to choose the correct weapon for the correct enemy. You can even customize and tailor specific weapons to a specific enemy type or use. This game also lets you change your player and dog skin, which actually might be something that you have to buy with DLC, but I'm actually not too sure about that. I just had them with whatever version of the game I bought. A lot of the story information is given to you by talking to the different characters in this area. They will explain the context of the missions and the story that is involved with them before you head out, which is really nice to actually get all the information about what you're doing, so it makes it more meaningful when you actually do these missions. All of these characters are fully voice acted, including your own, so it makes the listening to the story a lot more engaging of a process. They will send you on missions with different kinds of enemies, as well as different kinds of missions, including horror maps, which for me caught me off guard a lot, and it was actually pretty scary. Everything in the game made me pretty happy so far. The only issue I had was that the AI were kind of a little annoying or just lackluster. Their movement is sometimes erratic and irrational. They kind of seemingly move around without much purpose. Sometimes they will move to shoot you, but sometimes they seem to just scatter like a bunch of rats for no apparent reason. So it can be a little weird, but it's fine after all. What I did find annoying was that the bots will just pre-fire you extremely hard. And even once you're in cover, they will continue to shoot at you even though they can't hit you. It leads to situations where a room full of bots will just mag dump a wall that they think you're behind, and they will just laser you through objects that they have no possibility of hitting you. So it creates a lot of just meaningless shooting, and it's kind of weird, but it's not something that's really intrusive either. You can do a lot of different kinds of moving, like sliding or wall running, to reduce damage that these bots can do to you, so their laser beam stuff isn't as effective, but I am old and I cannot do that. I am not a crackhead, so I cannot jump off of walls and do all these cool slides to reduce damage, make the game even higher paced. I personally play it at a slower pace, so these people and bots kind of just shoot at you a weird way when you're not flying around the map so much. I feel like the bosses in this game were alright, but a lot of the time they kind of just turned into bullet sponges. I think that this is kind of a problem throughout the game, on the normal difficulty at least, which is what I played on. A lot of the big fights, the enemies can take a ridiculous amount of bullets to kill. You can unload 6 magazines into some of these bosses just to kill them. It's very silly. Like, you don't even need to switch weapons. Even using the correct weapon could still take that many bullets to bring them down. And I can't really think of any boss fights that required any specific mechanic. It was maybe optional, but for the most part you could just shoot as many bullets into a boss until they stop shooting you. So that's generally how it seemed to work throughout the game. So for the most part, you just shoot them to regain your health, or you can shoot the ads around the map to actually regain health as well. And then once you've regained your health, you can then continue shooting at the boss. But generally, it was pretty one-dimensional, but it was still enjoyable because the combat itself is still fun. I do want to note this one particular boss fight, if you could call it, where the main goal of you is actually not to fight the boss, but to actually run away and survive so that you can come back another time. I like this change of pace where you're no longer a god killing all of the enemies in the game, but instead you are almost dying and you have to run away to survive. After some more missions, you're introduced to another mission type. On this mission, you have to defend a guilder from an attack by a bunch of enemies. So you get AI companions that will help you fight all these different kinds of enemies, and you have to hold the area the best you can. What's interesting is that the enemies do push you back, and you have to hold different areas throughout the fight instead of just sitting in one area, so I thought this was pretty well done and I enjoyed it a lot. And again, there's another map that causes you to actually use your brain to continue the story. In this section, you have to select the right container by finding the container that has the corresponding number to the one that you're actually looking for. After finding the correct container, you have to look on the walls to get the matching symbols which relate to the coordinates of this container. You then put these coordinates into a weird computer thing and it will pick up the correct container. I like how you actually do get punished for selecting the wrong container in this kind of puzzle. I really like these kinds of puzzles because it makes you actually have to think and changes the pace of the game so that you can actually progress. I'm sure there's more to this game that I haven't really talked about or mentioned in this video, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing this game. Necromunda has these moments that pull you back into the game or into the story from the normal bullet hell setting that the game is normally in. I really like how this game forces you to interact with the story and the actual levels. It's really nice to see. I would really recommend this game for anyone who's interested in a Warhammer shooter game. I think the story is well done and the gameplay is pretty fun. So that's it. That's my thoughts on Necromunda Hired Gun. I hope that you found this video interesting or at least informative. And if I missed anything, let me know in the comment section. I'll check it out. And thank you everyone who supports me through Discord, Patreon. I really do appreciate it, and you know who you are. You can check out the description of this video to find my card link where you can join our Discord, check out my Patreon, and find all my other socials. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Good night.